Chapter 1. Arrival. You'd think that after 10 years of institutional education at 7 different schools in 7 different countries, I'd be used to the first day of school by now. But no matter what base Dad got stationed to, I was always the outsider, getting picked last in gym class, living in the shadow of Jess's overactive social life, and eating whatever passed for food in the host country, by myself, in a cafeteria, filled with people who just weren't as smart as Sherman Capote. On our first Nevada morning, Jess and I walked in silence along the perfectly paved asphalt, past beige office buildings and beige Air Force Standard issue bungalows with manicured lawns, minutes away from joining another midterm newcomers club. I looked up and noticed wispy clouds hanging in the dawn sky over the Groom Lake desert, our newest home. Noctilucent clouds, the highest kind of clouds you could get, right at the edge of space. Well, there's no actual edge of space. The molecules of air just get further and further apart, but that's where a man called Theodore von Karman drew a line between Earth's atmosphere and the rest of the solar system. Up there, where there's hardly any air and barely any gravity, a rocket has what's called 6 degrees of freedom. 6DOF. 6 degrees of freedom. Freedom. That's what I wanted as I marched towards another new school that I wouldn't fit into. What I got, however, was a military arrest, a midnight airlift, and a forced relocation back to the States for the fractured Capote family. "Do you hear that, Sherman?" Jessica asked, breaking the silence. "What, you talking?" "Ha ha," she said. "Very not funny." "No, insects." Now that she mentioned it, I could hear a rhythmic chirruping, like in the background of movie campfire scenes. "I think they're called cicadas," I said. "And do you know why you can hear cicadas?" Jessica droned on. I did, actually. It's an integral part of their mating ritual. The male makes the song to attract the female across the desert, and she punched me on the arm. Hard. Now, don't be fooled. Jess might look like a malnourished goth queen, but she punches like a heavyweight. And before you worry, she eats just fine. "We can hear them because we live in the desert now," she said, "with the insects. Can you just drop it?" "Are you ever going to tell me why you did it, Sherm? I mean, you sneak off and fire a missile." "It was a rocket," I corrected her. "From an Air Force base," she continued, "where rockets go by their maiden names. Missiles." "I'm sorry," I lied. I've said I'm sorry 1,000 times. I've said it to Dad. I said it to the Joint Chiefs. I said it to the Russian president on the phone, which is actually really hard to say in Russian. But if you want it one more time, okay, Jess, I'm sorry. But I wasn't, and I never would be. "You almost completed the World War trilogy, Sherman," she said. Of course, I had no intention of starting a war. I'm actually a pacifist at heart, more of a lover than a fighter. Okay, I'm not really a lover or a fighter, but on the 4th of March, 1 year after Mom's death, I had reasons for my spacebound tribute. Reasons it had to be a rocket. Reasons it had to fly that high. But they were my reasons. And the one good thing, the only good thing, about finally arriving at our new school was that it got Jess off the subject. Our mom, Carol Capote, always wanted to go into space. She was only 3 years old when Neil Armstrong took one small step for man. Unfortunately, Neil didn't say anything about man and woman. As she watched the black and white moonwalk from Grandpa's lap, Mom declared that she was going to be an astronaut too. But in those days, the closest a girl could ever get to outer space was serving drinks at 25,000 feet on a 707. Gran and Grandpa discouraged Mom from anything astronautical, and nudged her into nursing. But she stayed adventurous, so she chose nursing in the U.S. Army Medical Service Corps. And then, during Desert Storm, she met Dad. And one thing led to another, and that another, I suppose, led to Jess and me. So, had she done what she really wanted to do with her life, neither of us would exist. And that was the thought knocking around in my head as Jess and I arrived at the beige, 3-story concrete block soon to be known as our new school. Its darkly tinted rectangular windows glinted in the morning sun, and the immaculate front lawn soaked up the water from a row of tiny, twirling sprinklers. The schoolyard was empty, not a single student or teacher in sight. "It's freakily quiet around here," Jessica said. "Kind of like a Sherman Capote birthday party." "It's nice and quiet when you're not talking," I said. We headed up the concrete steps to the glass doors under silver letters that spelled out Groom Lake High School. The long central hallway was empty, populated only by trophy cabinets and plaques, and the shiny checkered floor smelled of polish and disinfectant. "You must be the new," called a voice. We turned round to see a hairless man with bleach-white skin and a dark suit. His bald head was dominated by thick, black-rimmed glasses, and his eyes, devoid of color, like two fried eggs with black yolks, widened when he saw our faces. "Kids?" he finished. If you look closely at school principals all over the world, in the corner of their mouths, they're quietly counting. Counting the hours until the school day finishes, counting the days until summer vacation, and counting the years until retirement will save them from schoolyard skirmishes, breakdown-inducing field trips, and confrontational parent-teacher nights. Having experienced 7 schools in 7 years, I had a finely tuned radar for mouth counting. And this albino administrator was counting the seconds. "I'm Sherman Capote, and this is Jessica, and sadly we are related." "This is most unusual," he said. "Where did you come from?" "I know, right?" sighed Jessica. "I mean, how could we come from the same gene pool?" "We landed last night," I said. "Our dad, General Frank Capote, told us to show up for school early." "I see. Well, I'm Principal Meltzer," he said. I took another long look. He really was hairless. Nothing at all. No eyebrows, no eyelashes, not even a patch of protruding nasal hair. "Come into my office. I think there's been a mix-up. This isn't really a school for your, type." "Geeks?" asked Jessica, tilting her head towards me. "Drama queens?" I suggested, nodding at her. Meltzer led us into his office, which was ridiculously tidy and exactly the kind of place you'd expect. Filing cabinets, desk, computer, window overlooking the front lawn, except for some reason it was all just a little bit slicker than any school office I'd been in. The cabinets were reflective chrome with flashy digital locks. The desk seemed to hover in the air, and the computer was insanely thin, thinner than anything I'd ever seen, and I never miss an Apple keynote. Meltzer got busy adjusting his thick glasses, checking his email, and calling his secretary. It seemed we were just one issue in hundreds that needed sorting before the morning school bell even rang. "Don't get me wrong," he said to us. "I'm pro-diversity, but to start this school without a security overview or an induction briefing?" But sir," I said, "apparently we're under orders to report here." "If you were under orders," Meltzer said, "you'd have the security over. You'd have the induction briefing." "We just landed," I said. "Under armed guard," Jessica moaned. "But we could just go home." "Capote, you say?" Meltzer asked, squinting his white eyes at the computer screen. "Here it is. Holy permission slip! You minnows are already enrolled by the highest level." He turned back to us with a disappointed look. "Why do the military have to be so militarized about everything?" "So we're in the right place?" I asked. "I wouldn't go that far," Meltzer replied. "But you're my problem now, so go have your vaccinations and welcome to the next chapter in your academic career." Outside, way overhead, a jet flew by. The distant roar of it filled the office while Meltzer's words sank in. "Why do we need vaccinations?" "The place is an overgrown petri dish of foreign bugs. Everyone gets the injection. Nurse Anderson's office is around the corner," he said, waving us away. "Oh, and try not to get eaten. That just means more paperwork." "Eaten?" asked Jess. "Figure of speech," I said hopefully. "Little minnows, big pond?" "Yeah, that's it," said Meltzer. "But steer clear of a pupil named Graz." "Who?" asked Jess. "Huge, hairy fella, doesn't take well to newcomers. I'd call him a bully, but that's giving bullies a bad name." The phone beeped, and Meltzer waggled his hand up towards us and the door, and he grabbed the receiver. "Oh," Jessica groaned, swinging her black hair over her shoulder. "How I hate you, Sherman Capote." We left the office and walked through a set of doors in the hallway. I took a moment to look at myself in the reflection, my disheveled bedhead hair, well, technically airplane head hair, peach fuzz face, red hoodie, the displaced Capote kid, the guy who almost started World War III. I tried to smile to stay on the bright side. War had been averted, but a crooked, resigned grimace was all that smirked back at me. I thought back to my first day of school in Germany almost 2 years ago. Maud made me her perfectly burned French toast, our first day of school ritual, and served it with a freshly squeezed orange juice and a side of pep talk. Sherman, I know it's hard starting new schools, she'd said, even though I'm not sure she really did know. But you are a special, smart, sensitive boy, and you're going to be spectacular. She always used S words with me. Jessica got complimentary adjectives too, but never beginning with J. Alliteration, like rockets, was just for me and Mom. And this was the first day I'd have without her. The first of many firsts I'd have without her. I was in the middle of the desert with my twin sister who hated me, my dad who would barely talk to me, and a school that clearly didn't want me. And I felt unimaginably alone in the universe. Okay, that's chapter 1. I'll do chapter 2 tomorrow in a new video. I hope you stay with it. I hope you really enjoy. If you've got the book at home, maybe read along. And see you next time.